This is the Post Shift Podcast, a raw look at the hospitality industry. What's happening, Post Shifters, and welcome to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. I'm really looking forward to this week. I got to sit down this week in Singapore, my first week back here, to chat to someone in my class and regard very highly as my mentor and a good friend, Philip Duff. He was here launching his Old Duff Genever, which is huge for him right now. He's really just redefined and exploded the 100% malt wine Genever industry in the world, and I'm so flabbergasted by the response that he's got from just the industry all over the world for this product. And he already has a great following, but to do an obscure product like 100% malt wine and create this spirit and then blow it up all over the world is just amazing. So I really enjoyed sitting down and chatting to him, because 9 times out of 10 we only see each other every couple of years when we're doing events together and a whole bunch of other stuff. And so this was a nice chance to sit down and really chat to him. I had a lot of questions because I do much smaller scale but very similar work that he does, and I was very curious at how he balanced it all out. And so I hope you enjoy this episode, guys. I'm probably going to slide this in somewhere different during the TOCC. I don't want this to hang out all the way to November, because that would really suck. But I'm hoping that you enjoy this episode, and thanks a lot for your support, guys. Bye.
So are we rolling?
Yeah.
Okay, so my name's Philip Duff, and I'm an old bartender, beverage consultant for the on-trade for liquor brands. I write, and I also own Old Duff Genever. So I've probably forgotten a few things, but that's the main stuff.
That's the main stuff. When did you start in the industry?
I was 15 years old in my hometown of Skerries, just north of Dublin, and I got a job bartending, actually. Didn't even have to bar back. I'm a terrible bar back to this day. So really it's been well over 30 years.
And where was your first gig?
That was in my hometown, bartending in Skerries.
Just a little pub?
No, everything but. It was the owner of a pub's son had gone to visit family in Ireland, in America, in Texas. And he saw what was only the second or third TGI Fridays in the world. I thought it's a brilliant idea. And he came home, and as much as he could, he recreated it in my hometown, this little village of about 5,000 people. And that was before any Fridays or anything like that had ever opened in Europe.
Okay.
So, and it was Ireland's busiest bar for about 10 years in a row. And it only opened like 6 p.m. to 11, 6 nights a week. And we had everything, cocktails, flair, the decor. It was incredible. So I really started at the top.
Yeah, because Matt Jones and I talked about the F word, which a lot of mixologists in this day and age don't like hearing about flair. But I think flair is something that still has a place in most bars, and most bartenders don't adapt it and adopt it as much as they can.
Well, the reason is, Sean, flair is bloody hard. Like, you can pull somebody off the street, and in an hour you've taught them all the principles of mixology. Yeah. After that, it's just about experimenting and gaining product knowledge. But you could take that person off the street and you could spend 2 hours with them and they still won't even be able to do a basic flair move. Flair is really, really hard. And the other thing that I think makes it vulnerable to criticism is that if you fuck up a cocktail, you don't get it exactly right, most customers, most bartenders even, don't have the balls to say it.
Yeah.
Right? I see it all the time. Sometimes you go to some of the world's very best bars and they're making cocktails that are off. There's a mistake, it's too strong, too bitter, or there's a product thing, something's gone off. And nobody ever dares to say it.
Yeah.
Right? But with flair, everyone knows oh, you're not supposed to drop the tin or something.
It's just very raw.
Yeah, mixologists bury their mistakes, but flair bartenders have to bear them, I feel.
Yeah. So were you going to be a bartender for the rest of your life after that?
Absolutely.
You really just got hooked. It wasn't one of those things like, I did that for a few years and I went off to become a doctor, and then I came back to bartending because doctoring was too hard.
Yeah, no. My parents never really finished high school, so I didn't have a clear career path. And I did indeed want to be a doctor at one stage, and I got admitted into medical school, and I didn't go. I had to wait a year because I was too young. So at the end of the year, I was like, I want to do a business degree. So I did a marketing degree. But I had no network. I didn't know anybody who worked in an office. My parents didn't know anybody. I didn't know, couldn't get an internship, didn't know what an internship was. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll move to London, I'll get a job in a bar, And surely, someone out there will work it out, and I'll get a great job in an office. And I did move to London, get a job in a bar, and now I'm here. So
I think that's the one thing that I literally reiterate in every single episode, especially when I talk to people that have been in the industry as long as we have, is like, when you say networking and internship and stuff, like, there was no internet. There was no Facebook.
No internet.
You couldn't go on LinkedIn and go, oh, I'm looking for a marketer in my region, or a marketing company in my region. You literally had to go hit the pavement.
Yeah, it was like, bar recommendations in Charleston, go!
Yeah.
Like, I once, because I watched the movie Cocktail and I saw it as like career guidance rather than entertainment, I wanted to bartend on the beach in the Caribbean. So I kind of went to the library, right? And I did some research and I found this place called Grand Cayman. I thought, it sounds amazing. So I looked up, literally in the phone book there, or some kind of directory they had in the library, like all the restaurants. And I wrote letters to pretty much every bar or restaurant on the island, and one of them replied, and I got a job. That's
really?
how it worked. And when I got to the island, I got to know other people in the community, and they're like, oh yeah, you're the guy who wrote the letter.
Wow, and so you wrote a letter, went to the Caribbean for how long?
I thought I'd be going there for the rest of my life, and I actually only really lasted about 9 months, because I come from a small town. It's lovely, but I'm kind of a city boy, really. And as gorgeous as the Caribbean is, it is just a collection of small towns, and it can get really, really claustrophobic really quickly. I had a great time there, absolutely. Totally go back to vacation, but I moved back to the big city pretty quick.
And you being on islands, you just go, like, you're miles away from anything else. And so if you go to the next island, it's just another trip to another town with a slightly different dialect and slightly different customs, and that's the way it is. But then you're still miles away from anything.
You really are. Everything's expensive. But, didn't regret it at all. Had a great time. And then I moved back to London, actually.
So what was the big turning point in your career that sort of trajectorized you, or that's not even a word, is it?
No.
Sean's
invented a word. Yeah.
Change the trajectory of your career to being, well, who you are right now. Like, what year are we talking about? What was that moment that sort of changed the course?
One big thing that happened, so having come, like, literally my first job, we had manuals and tests and trainings. So I thought that it was like that in all bars. I had no idea that, generally you just kind of get shoved behind the bar. So I always did a bit of teaching and training, even in like my teens. But at one stage, I was asked to go and work at a catering gig. Somebody called up the bar I worked at. It was a hot bar. Oh, we're doing this thing. We need somebody to make cocktails. So I went to the bus station, got my little business cards made, and I went to this gig, and it was a global distributor conference for a spirits brand. And I was like making, for the time, very advanced cocktails. It was like Holland in 1998 or so. So I was making, brambles and things like that. And everybody really liked it. And I handed out my stupid little homemade business cards. And then a week later, I got a call from the brand saying, hey, we'd like you to come and teach our academy in Japan. Right? And I'm like, okay, that's brilliant. The internet kind of got going by then. I'm like, if you could just email me all the material that you have on it. And they're like, no, all we have is a name. So a couple of weeks after that, I was on a plane, business class, thank you very much, to Tokyo. And I taught like a series of academies there. And that really kicked it up a notch, because that brand, the Balls Liqueur and Genever company, they became like one of my biggest clients. And I spent, I think, 9 years doing almost all their on-trade consulting, traveling around the world, helping to create products. We did actually create an entire syllabus of academies, and eventually they moved the company to Amsterdam, and we set up Europe's largest bartending school. So that really kept me busy. But in between all that, there was always lots of other clients as well. So.
How do you do that? Because that's one thing I know I've asked you this in the past, because when we first met, we got to spend about a week after the GCP traveling to Rotterdam and London and that sort of thing. How do you balance and juggle all the clients that you have? Because I find that's always been one of my hard things to do, is like, how do you juggle multiple brands within the same, well, in the liquor business, without crossing over or doubling down on certain things for each one? Like, how do you keep them compartmentalized?
Yeah, you have to be ethical. Like, for instance, one of my biggest clients at the moment is Beluga Vodka, which is the number one luxury vodka in Russia. And I get approached by other brands from Russia, from abroad, of vodka. Yeah. And I'm like, look, unless you want me to do some behind-the-scenes consulting, which does happen. Some of my work is new product development, and then I have to sign all these NDAs and stuff, and nobody ever hears I'm involved, which I can totally do that. But if you want me for like public-facing, trade-facing stuff, I can't really do it, right? Because that big client that I have, Beluga Vodka, it wouldn't be fair to them. So first of all, you keep it in the channels like that. And secondly, I'm a real boutique on-premise consultant, so I only really ever have 5 or 6 clients at one time, and when I'm over that, that's it. If you hire me, I want you to meet me, see me, and know that I'm going to do all the work, right? It's not like a PR firm where you meet this like amazing person, and then all the work is done by a load of 19-year-old interns who live in Brooklyn. So if you hire me, you get me, and I deal very intensively with the clients. Eventually, we tend to develop extremely long-term relationships, and apart from anything else, that keeps me busy enough that I can't fit in anybody else.
And so how'd that lead, like you've obviously training, education, spirit development and all that sort of stuff, how did that lead to Tales of the Cocktail?
Yeah, I was traveling a great deal, and I was going to all the shows in the world, speaking at all the shows in the world, and I'd heard of this Tales thing, and it sounded like a bit of a consumer thing, to tell you the truth. I was like, oh, it's a consumer show, screw that. But eventually I, wangled away to get myself over there. I was like, this is amazing. And like a year or two after I visited and presented for the first time, I was asked to join a volunteer seminar selection committee. And that really was a load of us on an email chain, probably about a dozen of us, saying, oh, let's ask Paul to do a seminar, let's get that, or, oh yeah, put me down for a seminar. There was no structure, there was no unemotional assessment. So I did that for a few years, and Tales was like growing vertically at that stage. And I approached the then owner and I said, look, you need somebody to be accountable, not a volunteer, right? So you have to pay them. And that person then has to deliver and devote themselves to some degree to that. And I became the first education director. So we expanded the committee. We introduced extremely rigorous and fair application ways. We made the application form about 10 times harder, so that just by applying, it would coalesce any idea that you had. And if you did get accepted, you'd be that much further along the route. Because every year, the seminars were like a little bit more expensive. They're $65 now. Some of them are $130, which is fantastic. But then they have to be worth $66 or $131. It's not like any other show in the world where the seminars are essentially free. You've got to give people value for money.
And how long? And what year was that?
It was 2010.
Were you still based in Holland in 2010? Yeah,
yes.
You were, weren't you?
Yes. So I lived in Holland full time until today, right, the 19th. New York time in August 2012 when I got married. So it was my wedding anniversary, and I moved full time to the USA now.
So you've already sent flowers. You've already done the whole
set text.
The good husband.
Set text. That's the modern equivalent of flowers.
I had my 10-year wedding anniversary while I was here on my first trip to Singapore.
Excellent.
And so we did dinner and everything before I left, and then I made sure flowers were at her door at work.
Okay, look, you're making me look bad, John. Let's go on to some other topic here. Elaine might hear this.
So Elaine was obviously the reason you moved to the US.
Yes.
And you've still kept the same pace. Like, the one thing that a lot of people think is, like, everybody says the US is sort of the hub of cocktail culture and that sort of thing, but, like, it's still a hell of a trek to get to Europe and still do everything you need to do in Europe. Like, you've visited some ridiculous amount of countries this year. This
is actually going to be my record year. There was some times when I lived in Holland, I hit around 40 countries a year, several years in a row. But this year's been insane. It's actually going to be 45 by my best count. Amazing. Which is, let's be honest, a bit much.
It's a little much. That's getting up into Angus Winchester sort of territory.
Yeah, and like, it doesn't even include Canada. Yeah. Like, that'd be an easy one if I lived in New York. Like places like the Ukraine. And,
so you're traveling a lot with Beluga Vodka.
They're a public-facing client, yeah.
And then, of course, you launched Old Duff Genever. How long ago was it now?
It will be 2 years in September.
That's gone quick.
September the 17th. It's gone really quick, yeah.
That's gone very, very quick. And obviously you're launching here in Asia right now, or APAC.
APAC, as we say it. So yeah, all of Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, China, also in some places I won't get to on this visit, like New Zealand and a few other territories. And by the end of September, we'll also be launching in Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. So it'll be ticking off the Nordics.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
It's a lot.
It always seems weird when you think of like a Dutch Genever from the Netherlands and the last place you're going to launch it in is going to be the Nordic countries.
Yeah. I mean, it's a case of, in the case of Proof & Company, who are going to do all the APAC distribution, I know them, done business with them for 8 years or more, seen them grow from a very small base, and they were in talks with me, and they said, look, we really want to do it in this region. They're the best conceivable partner you'd have. The one for the Nordics, same story. Old friend of mine, owns a bar in Sweden. Him and his partner started importing barware. And then they became alcohol distributors, and they do brands like Del Maguey, Italicus, Laird's Applejack.
So all the cool stuff. That
Can't
all
say
the
no
geeks,
to that.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Can't say no to that.
But I know that you've always been a hardcore geek. I remember the first year we did GCP together, we went to Skidham and we went to Skidham Museum and we tasted a whole schwackload of Genevers and we went through a walk through the mini bottle museum and the whole shebang and eating real Advocaat out of a tub.
Yep,
and I still tell the story to this day because it shows distance a lot. Like when we're sitting there and you're like, do you want to go for dinner in Antwerp? Like, but isn't Antwerp in Belgium?
That was a good dinner.
And we blew down to Antwerp, which is like an hour and a half drive. An hour, should be 2 hours, but you made it there in an hour. Had dinner, and then we went to a Geneva bar in Antwerp.
De Vacances.
But I knew you've always been a geek for the Geneva. But what really made you like bite down on the bullet and go, you know what? I do all this brand consulting for everybody else. I want to do my own brand.
Yeah, I mean, this might be the only useful bit of advice in the whole podcast. So I helped to create the what was called the Bols 1820 Genever, the smoked grey glass bottle. And it was an amazing project. It's a great product. But it gave me a lot of insights to the Genever industry. Mm-hmm. And it gave me the kernel of an idea, right? Because all the Genever you've ever really heard of from Holland, Bols, the Kuiper, Guts and all that, isn't actually made by them, right? They outsourced. So I thought, okay, it'd be nice to make a Genever that's actually from Holland. And then it would be nice to make one that's more transparent. It would be nice to rejuvenate extinct category, the 100% malt wine. But all I did for a few years was just talk about that, like, oh, I'm going to start a Genever. Oh, really, Philip, starting a Genever? I didn't actually do anything, right? Because you get all the same kudos for just saying you're going to do it. So a couple of years went by, and I began looking at how Genevers generally were doing. They weren't doing great, right? They weren't being, like, pushed. And yet, cocktail culture is growing everywhere. There's like premium cachaças doing well. There's aquavit doing well. There's mezcal doing well, right? Mezcal has a lot of built-in disadvantages. So around 2012, I sent a tweet to a mate of mine, Martin Dudroff, saying, oh, maybe I should start Old Duff Genever. Ha 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 ha. I still have that tweet. And then I sort of contacted the distillery, and it was the kind of thing where you send an email, have a phone call, then I wouldn't do anything for a few months. And I got into serious talks in 2013, and then I kind of let it go. 2014, we started developing it, and in 2016, it was supposed to launch, and I had been sort of letting shit go. I was concentrating on my other clients, my paying clients, and we missed a shipping date, right? So we hadn't got it ready, so it wouldn't be able to launch at a good time of the year. I said to myself, all right, fuck this shit. You've really got to concentrate on this now. And I said, I don't care how we do it or when it happens, but we are launching this Genever in 2017, and we launched it in September 2017. I had to make my own brand one of my clients. I had to make sure I paid attention to it.
And the packaging and everything is pretty historical. You went pretty hardcore. You went nerded out on every single element of every single piece of that bottle.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be the bottle. We're actually looking at the bottle right now. And we went through a lot of different evolutions of the label with the designer, Julian Forte of the Rooster Factory. And one of the best compliments I got on it is from Dick Janssen. Mm-hmm. He is the 12th generation of the Janssen distilling dynasty, dating all the way back to 1777. It's their distillery that makes Old Duff. And he said, it's a brand new Genever brand, but it looks like a classic label.
Yeah, I think I met him in San Antonio Cocktail Conference because they did a big Genever activation.
Wow. See, this is the world we're in now.
Was it Portland? I think
it was probably Portland.
It was Portland. Portland did a big Genever activation last year with Donnie Ronan, and they had like 12 different Genevers on the back bar.
Exactly. Did he have a moustache?
Yes.
No, that's the distiller, Odd.
Oh, okay.
That's Odd van der Lee, who makes everything that comes out of their distillery, but all the Genever as well. He's a great guy.
They did the massive Geneva seminar, and it was a ton of fun. I find Genever is still, for me, even after doing, three sessions with you, a couple of exterior ones, there's still a bit of a rabbit hole. Like when you go brand to brand, like how much wine does it have, what's the minimum, what's the maximum, all these sort of things. But obviously, this is an old package too, isn't it?
This is actually the US one, and it launched, and I was worried that people wouldn't understand the phrase malt wine for the distillate in Genever. So I kind of bottled it, and I put single malt on the label. And it turned out I had misjudged it. In the intervening 10 years since we launched Bols, everybody actually has learned a good bit about Genever. So the bottle that we have here in Singapore that you have in Misfits that Proof is launching, it says in big letters, 100% malt wine, and that will be the label forevermore.
Which one do you prefer? I know it's like picking your favourite child.
It is. I mean, we took the longest time to make the 100% malt wine because we made that first. and I love it. It's an extinct category, but I am aware it's not for everybody, right? It's like coming with the equivalent of, a Chichicapa or a Tobal or Mezcal, and the entire world has only been drinking, Gazano Rojo or something like that. So I adore it. I drink Genever, obviously in cocktails, but more often neat or with a beer. So I love this. On the other hand, the green bottle, the regular old Duff Genever, which is actually a Coravine, is the more versatile of the two for mixing, right? It slots into a wider range of cocktails, and I'm very happy that people love it for that reason. And the reaction from the bar world has been, they're used about evenly as much as each other. And that's weird, because I thought I'd probably use or sell one bottle of the 100% malt wine for every 4 of the other one, but it's around 50-50.
Wow, and you just hit a massive milestone. Would you say you sold 1,000 bottles in a year?
Yeah, we sold something, 1,010 bottles of 100% malt wine just in New York State.
Amazing.
In the first year, which makes it the best-selling 100% malt wine Genever with the Sealess Dam in the world, which is great.
So now that you've set up Tales of the Cocktail as the education director and you finished up with them this year,
yes.
What's the plan for, apart from travelling, what's the plan for the next 12 months?
So more Old Duff Genever, more work with a range of clients. So I'm doing a great deal of work with Beluga Vodka. I'm doing a great deal of work with Angostura Rum. They're one of my longer term clients. I'm picking up the pace with writing. So I've got a column in Drinks International, and I write features for them too. I'm writing more regularly for daily750.com as well. And there's one or two other client projects that I'm busy that aren't public facing things. So,
are you going to ever think about expanding and getting more people, or is your company really based off the fact that you deal with you and not what you said before, where you sit down with a great meeting with me and then with a panel of interns sitting at the table as well, and then you walk away and go to a YouTube video and everybody else does the hard work?
Yeah, I wish. No, I think what's happening in a weird way is clients love the fact that I've got my own brand. It's not a conflict at all. If anything, it's attracted more brands to come and talk with me, because I'm an on-premise consultant. I help brands communicate with bartenders in the on-trade, and I do new product development and education programs and all that. And having your own brand out there is proof. Yeah, it's like being a fat chef, right? It kind of proves that you get high on your own supply. And certainly for a tiny bootstrap brand with no budget, we've proved that if you build it, and you build it from the ground up and you do it right, you can have some interesting successes.
But Old Duff's got some sweet swag.
We have a little bit of swag.
I think the swag you guys have got perfect. Every bartender wants. The next thing you got to do is just a set of suspenders or freaking some. You got cufflinks, pins.
The wireless phone chargers. I'm actually looking into Christmas tree ornaments right now.
Awesome.
Yeah, maybe a box or something.
Everybody needs a goat, an Old Duff goat on the Christmas tree.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what I was thinking of. My mate Tim in New York, he gave me a chartreuse Christmas tree ornament last year.
Fantastic.
It's gorgeous. I filed that one away. I'm like, this is interesting.
So, with all your traveling, where do you find is the most exciting? I know you're probably going to ask this question a ton. Where's the most exciting country in the world or city in the world that you're finding cocktail culture is blowing up?
Well, that it kind of indicates where's it growing fastest, and that's obviously the places where it's coming from a very small base. So I'm going to go to 7 cities in China next week. 7 days, 7 cities. 3 of them are new: Chongqing, Hangzhou, and Chengdu. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I know, I haven't been in China in about 2-3 years, I know things are booming there now. Because you can go so fast, because all the information's online, everything's in a magazine, everything can be learned at a trade show, on a YouTube or something like that. So people can gain a ton of knowledge. Pound for pound, Australia is the best cocktail culture in the world. Really is, on an average level. And obviously, when you come to pushing the envelope, you've got to look at London and New York. They're so closely allied, they're suburbs of one another.
Yeah, because I laugh at people because even coming to Asia for the first time, last visit to Singapore, everybody looks at the map and they think Australia is really close to Singapore and Singapore's really close to Tokyo, and you're like, well, it's still a 7-hour flight to Tokyo, and it's still 7 hours to get to Australia, and they're like, really? It's it's 10 hours to get from Seattle to Tokyo, 7 hours to get from Tokyo to Singapore. Everybody thinks everything's so very, very close.
Yeah, they're I'm over in Asia. I'm in Asia.
Yeah. It's and then I think Australia, I always, because I know Angus has the same sort of feeling about Australia, and I always say is, in Australia we're a very competitive nation, but we all help each other out as well. It's not infighting or anything like that. It's very, very competitive, like best mates, but we got to be better than you.
Yeah, I always remember the story. I tried to tell two stories about Australia. One is something that Jason Crawley said, a Brit who moved over there. He said, Phil, this is a country where a truck driver will hand back a cappuccino if the foam isn't tight enough. And the other one is the Australian magazine, their Bartender of the Year competition is just ridiculous. It's so hard, right? And there was one town, it wasn't, the biggest city in Australia. It wasn't small, it wasn't like Perth or Brisbane or something. And a bartender from there got into, the finals or the final 20 or the final 10. And the entire community in that city took turns every Saturday. They'd come along and each expert would teach like that person, that finalist, something of their expertise. So if they knew about whiskey, give a whiskey seminar. Knew about gin, give a gin seminar.
Wow.
So they all rallied round to prepare their bartender as much as they could.
That's amazing. The one thing I was learning about Australian Bar Awards just the other day is I think it's the most in-depth bar awards anywhere in the world. Because they go outside the cocktail realm. There's the pub of the year, the nightclub of the year, the wine bar of the year.
The regional pub of the year.
Yeah.
The best licensed working man's pub. The best small license. The 28 awards. Yeah. Jesus. It takes 4 hours. It's bigger than the Spirited Awards at Tales. There's more people there.
Yeah, now I know they've broken it down the last couple of years to best gin bar, best whiskey bar, best mezcal bar, best rum bar. Here are the top 10 best gin bars. And I'm like, holy crap, that must take forever.
It does. It really does.
So what are you excited about in 2020?
Obviously, more to Genever, building on the projects I'm doing with my clients. One of the things is I'm a real pain in the arse to work with. So it's hard to hire me, and once you've hired me, it's hard to get rid of me. Mm-hmm. So I tend to work with clients, we try to do 3-year horizons for projects. I say, like, the first year, we're not going to have any success. In fact, we might go backwards a bit. The second year, you're going to start seeing some green shoots of growth. But, don't hold your breath. The third year, we're really going to kill it. Right, so for instance, the Beluga Vodka Signature Program has expanded. They did it once or twice before I came on board. Now we're in the 5th year or 6th year, and last year we had 250 global entrants. This year we had 600.
Wow!
Right, we've brought India on board, for instance. So it's growing very, very slowly. We're doing it exactly right. It reminds me of the good old days of the G-Vine Gin Connoisseur Program. So I really like that because it gets me out and about to see bartenders. Very often, some bartenders that I might not have met otherwise because there's an emphasis on luxury. Same is true for Angostura. They're evolving their education program as well, which is brilliant. And I'll continue to travel, hit up all the bar shows. Like one of the best new bar shows in the world is Barometer in the Ukraine. Insane show. And maybe bring out, I don't know, a special edition or something like that of Old Duff Genever next year.
Like an aged one, perhaps?
Yes. I came up with the name first. The name is going to be Old Duff Genever Screaming Goat.
Ooh,
right?
Nice.
So what that exactly is, if it's barrel proof or a finish or something like that, I'm not quite sure.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
No. I think if when you do a cocktail competition and an education program correctly, like GCP, like our first year GCP, we had like people like Jeff, like famous bartenders now.
Yep.
That weren't famous then.
Jeff Bell, Monica Berg, Frankie Marshall,
Stephen Hins,
Kelly Thorne, all these people who are superstars now because it was such a hard contest. Only the true believers entered, and we didn't have any metrics because I'm an asshole to work with. And G-Vine very kindly said, "Well, look, we got nothing to lose. We have nothing. So let's just attract that hardcore," and it really worked.
It was an epic competition, and I think a lot of competitions now worldwide have really, I think, replicated what we did at GCP for like 3 years. I think World Class stepped up a notch because of GCP and changed. Like before, it was just a random cocktail competition. Now you got to do pour tests and speed rounds, and like this year's World Class finals. I just went to the national winner for Canada. It's in three different cities.
Is it
over 2 different countries?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, first challenge is in Holland with Ketel One, and then they fly to Glasgow to do a thing. And I'm just like, I remember how much stuff I had to take to the nationals, let alone traveling all the way across the world to 2 different countries.
Yeah, it sounds like it's replicating the life of an ambassador, which is kind of part of the prize. If you win or you get to the finals, you tend to get picked up a lot to be an ambassador. So
yeah, I remember when Ricky Gomez won. I think Angus got up on stage. He's like, and the person who's winning and becoming a Diageo World Class brand ambassador for a year is Ricky. And Ricky's like, what? I didn't read that small print. What the hell's going on?
That's how you learned.
Well, I appreciate. What's your schedule for today?
So, really happy. So I'm having a brand planning meeting with the owners of Proof & Company. Then we're doing 2 internal staff trainings for the incredible bar Atlas here in Singapore. You know, one of the best bars in the whole world, definitely in this region. And then we have 2 sold out, standing room only Juniper Society sessions tonight in Atlas. This is like the membership club of Atlas. Mega geeky. They meet once or twice a month. So we had a lot of demand. I think we have something like 45 people. There's 2 sessions. There's 18 people on the wait list. And these are people who are really interested in all aspects of gin. So I'm going to come in there and talk about Genever, which should be fun for them and me.
That's fantastic. And then you fly to China tomorrow.
Yeah, Hong Kong tomorrow, Shenzhen Saturday.
So how long till you get home?
I get home on the 1st of September for a couple of days, and then I have to fly to Moscow. So.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you sitting down. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank
Always
you.
a pleasure, mate.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Post Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're listening, whatever platform you're on, give me a good rating, subscribe, listen along. I'm going to keep going. I really enjoy sitting down with people and learning where they're from, what they did, and how they got to where they were. So if you love it, give me a good 5 stars. If you don't, give me 1 and I'll try harder.